The government has reversed its opposition to mandatory jail terms for hate crimes. It will now support a call to lock serious offenders up for at least 6 years. Live to our political correspondent Cameron Reddin in Canberra. Cam, after all Labor's resistance, they are going to back the coalition's plan, essentially.
The coalition believes it's forced Labor's hand on this front, Laura. The Prime Minister, for his part, will argue, though, that it is ultimately his government that will make mandatory minimums law when it comes to terror offences and also the display of hate symbols. This is what's going to be included in the legislation: a mandatory minimum jail time of no less than 6 years for committing a Commonwealth terror offence. 6 years will be the minimum. It'll be a minimum of 3 years in jail for financing terror activity and also a minimum of 1 year in jail for displaying hate symbols, which includes things like displaying the logos of terror organisations or, for example, spray painting a swastika on a place of worship. That will attract a minimum of 1 year in jail. The reports of this change of heart from the government were first broken by Sky News yesterday by Andrew Clonell. The government, now having dropped its opposition to mandatory jail terms, believes that this will put forward a suite of the toughest hate crime laws in Australian history.
I want people who are engaged in anti-Semitism to be held to account, to be charged, to be incarcerated for what is a serious series of crimes.
This change in position from Labor does go against the party's own national platform, which explicitly spells out that the party is opposed to mandatory sentencing, arguing that it doesn't reduce crime, it doesn't work, and even undermines the independence of the judiciary. But that platform will be put to the side, and it will include these mandatory minimums in legislation put to both houses of Parliament today. The Greens will not support this, but ultimately it won't matter. It'll sail through the House in the next half hour or so before it goes to the Senate, where it will have bipartisan support and become law by the end of the day.
The government has been dragged kicking and screaming to doing the right thing to protect Australians, but once again it is Peter Dutton and the coalition who has led, and it's Anthony Albanese in the Labor Party who has followed, because they just don't have instinct for national security.
And Cam, is there any movement on the government's plan to increase taxes on super?
Not at the moment, Laura. This is the plan to increase tax on balances for superannuation over $3 million. The government has been attempting to strike a deal on this for some time, but at the moment hasn't been able to. The Prime Minister even clarifying this morning how this plan would affect the likes of the defined benefit scheme, a generous scheme for the pensions of politicians and also some judges and others that is rather generous. He notes too, the Prime Minister, that if these changes become law, he would personally be paying more tax as a result. At this stage, though, it is largely friendless in the Senate. The government yet to strike a deal on this. It was due to be dealt with initially today. It's looking more likely now that the government will use next week to try and find a way through, leaving the door open to perhaps revisit it in a second term if it can't strike a deal by the end of this fortnight.
I would have to, out of the contribution, that is the payments that I receive, there would be greater taxation. The superannuation system is very important, but it's very generous at the high end, and that is why we're proposing this change. At the moment, it doesn't have support.
And just on those hate crimes laws too, Laura, we're expecting this to pass pretty quickly in the House this morning. I'm told there won't be any more debating. It'll go straight to a vote in the next 10 to 15 minutes. Then it's off to the Senate for largely a tick of approval, and then it will become law in a few hours' time.
OK, Cam, thank you.